Let's talk about really why you're here today, because you did actually mention it about your book, Going Alt Ac, and you wrote this with your colleagues, Katie Linder and with Kevin Kelly. And this book to me sounded so interesting because it does talk about alternative paths that someone within the academia world can actually go and pursue. And when I saw your posting about this on LinkedIn, I must have read my 29th post from other people describing burnout and frustration and then trying to be able to figure out, what do you do? Where do you exactly do you go? And I know a thing or two about a thing or two because I have worked in academia for years. So I have been a lab assistant, an instructor. I've been an academic advisor, an instructor, a program manager. So I've dabbled in a few different areas, but definitely most people I don't think are as well versed about what you can actually do from different types of paths and alternatives. So before we go into this, can you tell us more about your inspiration behind why you wanted to write the book?
Yeah, this was a fun one because if you go to the academic self-help shelf in the bookstore, there's dozens of these books. It talks about how to, and with titles like "Surviving the PhD Grind," or "What to Do When Your Field Has Dried Up," and they're kind of these, I don't know, apocalyptic, getting over the emotional drain of not being able to actually follow the path that you thought you were going to follow. We wanted to write a book that was very different in tone, that was the experiences that you have in getting a postgraduate degree can serve you well. You can, while you're working on your education, set yourself up to go into a number of different kinds of paths, either in academia but not on the instructor track, or adjacent to academia where you're using academic skills in other fields. It was weird because I was thinking in 2016 that this book needed to be written for the reasons that you've just mentioned. I was having all these individual conversations with people who said, "How did you get where you are? This doesn't seem like a path that I could follow," or "I'm having challenges just mentally figuring out what is possible." Because of course, when you're a graduate student, your advisors, they're the successful ones, right? They're the ones who went through their work and they got the faculty positions. And so what they know is how to create more faculty members like them. And they are seldom connected to people in industry or adjacent fields so that they have a way to advise us as learners about what else is out there beyond becoming another tenure track person. So I wanted to write my own book. Meanwhile, Kevin Kelly is in San Francisco. He's working on the Peralta grants, and he thinks I need to write this book because there's so many resources out there that people can use to follow alternative academic paths, but nobody knows about them. They don't get play. So he wanted to write that book. Katie Linder, meanwhile, is at Oregon State University, and she, in her role as director of their Teaching and Learning Center, she's thinking, I need to write this book. I work with so many graduate students who don't seem like they have a clear path beyond where they're going after the degree, and I've had conversations with so many people who have rich experiences to share and stories to tell, and she was going to write the book. Fast forward to 2017 at Online Learning Consortium in, was it Orlando? Yeah, Florida. We were at a Disney property, and the three of us connected. I'd known Katie for years and years. We'd been colleagues and friends, and Katie had known Kevin for a long time as well. And the three of us got together, and over dinner, the conversation was, "Well, what are you working on?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to write this book on alternative academic careers." And Katie said, "No, I'm going to," and Kevin, "Me too," right? And we realized that we were each writing three very different books. Kevin's was all about the resources that nobody knew about. Katie's was all about the people whom she could connect with, and mine was all about the theoretical way to think about those pathways. So we recognized, why don't we all combine our talents and put the book together that way? So Katie was the glue. She's the first person who said, we should do this together. And she became lead author and, head sled dog as we were all pulling in the same direction. And it was a wonderful writing experience because I had met Katie in person a few times, but I'd only met Kevin the once. And we wrote the whole thing over the course of 2017 remotely, with everybody sort of dividing things up. And as you've read the book, Luke, you notice that the chapters, we strove to have a consistent tone, so you couldn't tell which one of us had written which chapters, but we totally did, right? And so some of those chapters are quote-unquote mine, some are Katie's, some are Kevin's. But it was a fun way to get that information out there. And I'll also confess, it was also really bad timing that the book got published from Stylus Press. The announcements went out at the end of January 2020. And then 5 weeks later, there was a pandemic. So in terms of, people coming to the book, I'm grateful that you have picked it up now, and I'm hopeful that it gets a little bit more play, because we really do want people to pick it up and say, here's a manual for how I can think this process through. So yeah, thanks for talking about the inspiration. We all saw a different need, and they all keystoned together.